Hancock home. Lena and Ida Hancock had gone to a Christmas party and were not home that night. Susan Hancock was asleep in her daughter's bed when an intruder struck her in the head, knocking her unconscious before carrying her into the backyard. Moses Hancock woke up when he heard noises and was able to scare the intruder off. Susan Hancock was severely wounded, and she survived 3 days and died on September 28th, 1885. After the murder of Susan Hancock, the Hancock family was pulled apart. Suspicion fell upon Moses, and he was arrested for murder. Moses had found an unsuspected advocate in John Hancock, who brought the case against Moses, thought the case against Moses was devious and defended him pro bono, and the case against him was dropped. However, through a complicated series of efforts on the part of his brother-in-law, William Staggs, and the proddings of private detectives, Moses was later rearrested, charged, indicted, and tried for Susan's murder. In the court testimony, William Staggs and his wife stated that Moses was a drunk and abusive husband who made threats against his wife. Mm-hmm. Susan Hancock's sister Martha Farwell's relationship with Moses was not as bad as his Staggs, but she did paint a somewhat unflattering portrait of her brother-in-law, stating that Moses never mistreated Susan, except cursing her when he was drunk, and Susan was afraid of any drunk man. 16-year-old Lena Hancock defended her father, testifying that Papa always treated Mama kindly and never whipped us girls in our lives. Susan had thought about leaving her husband and at one point had written a letter detailing her reasons for leaving. Here's the letter. Dear husband, I've lived with you 18 years. I always tried to make you a good wife and help you all I could. I have loved you and followed you day and night. You won't quit whiskey, and I'm so nervous I can't stand it. You know, it almost kills me for you to drink, and Lena is almost crazy and will lose her mind. If I was to do anything to disgrace you and our children, you would leave me. You would have quit me long ago. Take good care of yourself. Write me at Waco, and I will answer every letter. Your wife until death, Sue Hancock. But she never went through with leaving Moses. It kept the letter hidden away. It was later found among her belongings after her death.
Oh, how did she die? Was there any suspicion around her death?
That was Susan.
That was Susan. Oh,
yes, Sue. She just called herself Sue Hancock.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
After the death of his wife, Moses Hancock became his own worst enemy. He began drinking heavily. He was threatening and abusive to his in-laws. He made up strange stories and accusations related to the murder and talked about leaving the country. In spite of himself, he's ultimately exonerated for Susan's murder in 1887. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, that was one of the. That was the only really person who went to trial for any of these murders, and he was exonerated.
Okay. Was the last? Was Susan the last known victim?
No, I believe the last known victim was. Let me get her name. Luna Phillips.
Okay.
Luna Phillips was born April 22nd, 1868, to Thomas and Alice Burkitt's. Excuse me. The Burtitts came from a family of early settlers of Travis County, and numerous Burtitt families farmed and ranched in the area. Let's see. She's a divorcee. She in late 1882. Her mother Alice had divorced her father Thomas.
Oh, okay.
However, the case never came to trial in the intervening weeks because Alice had passed away from the typhoid epidemic that was going around in the area. At the age of 21, Luna married James Phillips Jr.
Okay.
Let's see here. She moved around a lot, but finally they returned in August of 1885 to the Austin area. Around the last 3 months of 1885, Luna and James' marriage seemed to be unraveling. Luna started having a not-so-discreet affair with a 27-year-old named John Dixon.
Oh.
Dickerson, excuse me. Dickerson was single, attractive, and wealthy, and well connected, and he held a prominent position. Secretary of the Capitol Commission, an agency overseeing the construction of the state capitol building, which was building in progress. In November 1885, Luna left her husband, taking their infant son with her. She spent a week at a residence of Fanny Whipple, where she met Dickerson in the evenings. Evidently, Luna did not plan on returning to James because she had Mrs. Whipple fetch her belongings from the Phillips home. Luna only stayed at Mrs. Whipple's a week, then moved into the home of maid Tobin, where she had spent the following week, again seeing Dickerson on several occasions. She then left Mrs. Tobin's and went to Manicheska and Elgin and stayed with relatives.
Okay.
On the night of Christmas Eve, after the Phillip household was fast asleep, Luna, who had returned, slipped out of the house and, accompanied by someone unknown, arrived at Maid Tobin's, where she had previously spent time with John Dickerson. Luna asked Tobin for a room, but none was available, and Luna left. Within an hour, Luna was dead.
Oh.
Tobin and whoever accompanied Luna were the last people to see her alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of those cases where this person was never caught, right?
Yes, this person was never caught.
Wow, that's so interesting because so it's just assumed that the person stopped at some point.
Yeah, they did stop. There's a couple of theories on why they did stop. But no one really has any concrete evidence to link to one person or a group of people at that time.
Right.
But yeah, they did stop.
Interesting. What makes a person just stop? I guess death.
Well,
they die if they're imprisoned.
Yes, they die. They're imprisoned. Some just stop just because they feel the heat coming on. Like the BTK killer is a perfect example. They stopped and had a lull of like 12 years before they started killing again.
I don't get that. I don't get if you're that committed to killing folks, and of course, the cops are looking for you.
Right.
The cops being on your tail is enough to make you stop doing the thing that you seem to be like committed to doing, like addicted to doing. I don't know. So if I was a serial killer, not saying I am, this is purely hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a serial killer, I'm not sure I could just turn it off.
Yeah. Most serial killers can't turn it off. They can't. But like, there's only rare occasions I have, and BTK is a perfect example. Of them killing off Jack the Ripper, we don't know.
Right.
The Texarkana Moonlight Killer, we don't know. The X-Men of New Orleans.
Texarkana Moonlight Killer. Okay.
Yeah,
Texarkana is a word that's always mystified me. That's all.
Yeah. That's a previous episode I did in the past. The X-Men of New Orleans. Any unknown killer. It's suspected maybe death. Had got him, or mainly it's death.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There was a few victims that did survive this. Clara Strand and Christine Martison, two Swedish servant girls, were seriously wounded the night of March 19th, 1885. Rebecca Ramsey had survived. We talked about that as well. And Walter Spencer, who was with Molly Smith, was seriously wounded, but he ended up surviving.
Okay. So, yeah, not perfect,
yeah,
I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, but it was because only a couple of people had gotten a glimpse of who this person was. Okay. One eyewitness testimony said, all right, it was a black man, with rolled up pants. Another one had stated that the killer had either been a white or dark complected or yellow man wearing lamp black to conceal his skin color, or a man wearing a Mother Hubbard style dress. Okay. Or a man wearing
Okay.
a man wearing a slouched hat, or a man wearing a hat and a white rag that covered the lower part of his face.
Hmm.
A Mother Hubbard style dress is a long, wide, loose-fitting gown with long sleeves and a high neck.
I mean, that's believable, just repression and,
Yeah,
just can't live your lifestyle the way you want to live it. So you target the people who you want to be like or whose lifestyle you want to have, and that's women. But you also may have a realism, right? You
right.
can't just go around killing, heiresses. Better to
Mm,
kill, better to kill either people you have easy access to, so
right,
that's the black guy angle, or people that you could get away with killing and it may not be too much of a fuss.
right. Yeah,
This is
because
the oh go
yeah,
ahead,
people,
go ahead.
people are not looking for like with people who they say are the outskirts of society, working class people. They're not looking for them.
Right.
They're not looking for them at all. So especially this person who's doing this person or persons are doing this are very sick individuals who need help. Because murder is abnormal.
Right.
Those who
And that
say that murder is normal is a lie.
I read something about serial killer profiles
Mm-hmm.
that was particular, I guess, to that era, right? You have some type of something that makes you snap,
Right.
something you're going through that pushes you over the edge, quote unquote, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the heightening of some situation that you're in,
Right.
right? You have something that's a little bit of a stressor, then something that I guess escalates,
Mm-hmm.
and you're pushed. So it could be like that's like a crime of passion type thing that I thought about.
Right.
And just you're again that's the whole the cross-dressing angle. You're being socially repressed, or maybe you're being abused in some kind of way, or maybe you've experienced abuse in some kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you've been desensitized to violence,
Right.
right? Which means that maybe through your youth you've been exposed to violence, which is violence in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I guess from that you begin to it's normalized. So maybe you begin to fantasize about it, which is kind of weird, but it could just be normalized. It could be just, something that you no longer feel guilty for doing, which means I mean, you have to have a reason. It has to be tied to something. It has to be tied to something making you quote unquote feel better or at least not as bad. I don't
Right.
know. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was interesting. It was interesting reading uh those kind of profiles, especially in that era. So
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yes, it is interesting. Also interesting that some African Americans in the community where these murders were taking place, and some practitioners of the religion voodoo had believed the killer was a white man who had magical powers that enabled him to become invisible, as no
Oh wow.
dogs outside or a fenced yard adjacent to the location where the murders occurred were heard to bark or raise any alarms.
I look at that as symbolic. Maybe
Yeah.
he was known to the area. Maybe it was a person who was just known to the area.
Mm-hmm.
So, if dogs know you, they're not going to bark like they would if they don't know you. Being invisible means that you're just not, it could also mean that you're just not under anybody's suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting. But I think that voodoo kind of interpretate. I think that voodoo explanation can be interpreted in some very concrete, truthful ways. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Now we talked about the victims. We talked about a little bit about the MO. Let's talk about some of the suspects. Mainly, let's get this out of the way since it's come up. The connections with Jack the Ripper. Summing it up, there is no connections with Jack the Ripper. This is totally different MO, but some people, including researchers now, think there is some sort of connection of the Servant Girl murder, Annihilator, and Jack the Ripper. Some thinking that both are the same people.